All right, so with your pattern pieces, you want to cut it out. Make sure that you have your dots connected. Put all of your tape and or glue to get them all ready. Once you have all of them good to go, then we're gonna get all of our actual material. So I'm using a cotton woven for the outside. And so with that cotton woven, you're going to need to put woven interfacing. I am using, as the pattern calls, waterproof canvas, but I'm also going to use this for my bottom gusset to give that gusset a little extra strength. And I will be interfacing the bottom gusset with Decoville Light. For the outside front pocket, I'm going to use this purple iridescent, as well as for the strap covers and the strap connectors. And then for my lining, I'm going to actually use ripstop. The pattern calls for woven, which makes it easier to pull it together, but the ripstop is very much similar to a cotton woven, and it makes it waterproof. So that's going to be my lining. Once you have all of your pieces cut and interfaced and your pieces with the line marks from the pattern, we're ready to get started. For this first piece, we'll need 2 of the 3 front pocket pieces, as well as the 23.5-inch zipper, which is number M. We're going to go ahead and fold each in half and mark the center line. I'm again using, it doesn't really matter at this point, but I'm using my erasable just in case if I do get any lines, I can seam it out. Okay, do the same on the zipper. Here, what I'm going to do is actually little mini snips, as well as little snips all around, just to make it easier for it to go around the curve. So tiny little snip, so I know that that's my halfway mark, and the little snips around the edge. Same thing on the other side. On the zipper tape, we're going to measure in 1/2 inch from each of the different edges and make marks. This is going to be a start and stop on the zipper. Depending on how you like to sew, you might want it on the front or the back. I put it on both just in case, but you want it on each side. And it's important to make sure that your zipper does measure the 23.5, or this doesn't quite work. Okay. Now we're going to take your front panel, I'll turn it towards you, and your zipper, and we're going to start to attach it. Starting with that center mark, find the center mark you did earlier, and clip there. And then slowly work your way around both sides. Again, those little clips around the zipper really will help it fit in place, especially while you sew it. And same thing, this half should end just before this mark, which does, so it's perfect. All right, now we're gonna take it to the machine and baste it around the edges. Now you're gonna take your lining, make sure the right side is down, and you're gonna pin it around as well, starting with, it's very hard to see, but your middle line, making sure that it's aligned to the middle of the zipper. So let's take it to the sewing machine and finish her off. All right, now that we have it all stitched around and cut off any of our spare threads, we're gonna turn it inside out. I like to grab the zipper and use that to kind of pinch and pull it through. Check all of your seams, make sure they look nice. Back and front. All right, we are not going to top stitch yet. We're just kind of finger pressing, make sure everything's nice and flat. What I like to do too is I add 2 little pins at the bottom. That way it keeps it all together and a little easier for some of the next steps. Okay, and from there you can move on to step number 3, making the front main. You're going to need this pocket piece. You're going to need the other lining piece. And you're going to need your part B interfaced. To get started, we're going to fold them all in half and find those center lines. Mark them. All right, now with B right side up, we're going to place the pocket right side up and then flip it and find the middle parts. And you're going to start there. Make sure you got the middle, kind of move it around me a little. And then go out to each side. Now for this edge, you're going to end up pinching it in. So I'm going to leave it undone for right now. All right, so before we baste this in, I'm going to bring in that line that's here, which is where that zipper ended, and bring in that pinch so that it tucks in. In and over on both sides. I added this because I think it makes it look fun once you actually turn it around, and also it gives a little volume to the pocket. So repeat that on the other side. All right, now we're going to take it to the machine and baste it around. One thing to note, when you fold it over, you want to make sure that your outside is on the outside so that when you actually fold it out, you'll see it like this. So when you fold it, you fold it out and then you lay this on top. All right, so now that you've gone and checked it all, and you have your first one sewn in, we're going to go ahead and top stitch. And the top stitching, you're going to start here and then make your way around the edge until you get to this side and back around again. And then you're going to take your other liner, put it right side down. We're going to clip it all around, and then we'll take it back to the sewing machine and actually sew it in place. Start at the center and then clip around. And then you're going to take your other liner, put it right side down. We're going to clip it all around, and then we'll take it back to the sewing machine and actually sew it in place. Start at the center and then clip around. All right, so now that we have that all nice and set, we're going to go ahead and put that aside, and we're going to create the strap covers. So you're going to need all 4 of your eyes interface. Now I'm using vinyl and woven just so that I get some fun, but I don't make it thick enough where I can't actually sew through all of the layers because I am using a domestic. So we're going to take what you decide to have on top. So that's going to be these puppies, and you're going to put them right sides facing each other, and then you're going to sew around 3 of the edges. So we'll go ahead and put some clips on them. Now when you sew this, something to remember if you are using something that has direction, the side that you close is the side that will end up like this over your bag. So you want your pattern, if there's a pattern, to face up this way. So this will be the top and this will be the bottom. All right, let's take it to the machine and sew it around. So I've turned them out. I use this chopstick type of thing to push through and get my corners out as best as I can. There's all sorts of tools that you could use that can probably get a better, sharper corner, but I don't mind it. So I'm gonna leave it like that. And then I'm gonna put some pins as I'm gonna go through and put a top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. All right, so now we're going to do the top gusset. I am doing a non-directional in this video. I will post a sub video which will just show you how to do the directional. But we're gonna need the G, or I'm sorry, this is F because it's not directional. We're going to need the liner. We are going to need webbing. We're going to need the finished strap covers that we just did, and we're going to need the zipper. Now I have put optional some rivets, and so I am going to put some rivets in the handle just to give it a little extra strength once we get to that point. All right, so first thing first is we are going to start marking the handle. So you're going to set the others aside. We're going to get our webbing, fold it in half. Now you can either use pins and pin it. You can use a heat safe marker, or you can use chalk. In this case, I'm going to use a mixture of pins and chalk, mainly because I don't like to have to heat it up again after this is all done. So we're going to do the half. I'm going to use a pin for the half just because I only need this to start measuring side to side, and I'm using my board, which is measuring, to actually measure it out, but you can also use a an actual measure to measure them out as well. I'm going to set that on the side though. All right, so we are going to mark 3 inches away from the center on each side. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then from there, we're going to mark one more line over, so 1 inch over or 4 inches from the center. And when we sew, we're going to sew a box using these 2 lines. Okay, so that's our strap, our strap handle. Now we're going to actually put this together, so I'm going to set this aside for a quick second. And we're going to take our top, we're going to turn it upside down. And in my case, it doesn't matter which side is going to have the zipper, but if you do have a specific side that you want the zipper on, make sure that it's on the top. And then we're going to make some marks on this, which is where we're going to figure out how to put the strap covers on. Okay, so from the top, we're going to mark 1.5 inches from the center. So let's get our center. So this is my center mark. And then we're going to mark 1.5 inches from each side. So 1.5. That's here. And then 1.5. That's here. And then what I'm going to do is, so you guys can see it this way. So we have my center, and then it's 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. And then from here, we're going to put the strap covers. So we're going to put the strap edge so that it aligns to the side of this. And you want right side down because you're going to see it from the other edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this to pin it down. And then same thing here. And there we go. So your straps will come out like this. Now we're going to we're going to fold this over at the end so that you don't actually see the raw edges, because you're not going to want to sew down here when you actually sew this to the front and the back, because you're going to want this to stay open so no stitches can go across this. I like to baste this just in case, so let's go ahead. I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm not going to record this part. I'll just come back once I've basted it. So I have basted it in place. We are going to fold this over at the end once we've put the other side of the gusset together. So now we are going to add the strap handle. So looking at it from the bottom, we are going to go ahead and measure in 2 inches up. Oh, and this would have been good to keep your center mark. So my center mark I still see the crease. So we have the center mark. We're going to go up 2 inches and the strap is going to lie here. So we're going to erase that and start here again. All right, so I've basted the straps in place. Now, one thing I want to make known here, if you are using a domestic, you definitely do not want to use too thick of a straps, because you're going to have the zipper here, the top gusset, the strap, as well as the liner of the top gusset when you go to then also connect this to the lining of the actual, because you're going to go like this and connect this to the lining of the back. So if you don't have a heavy duty machine, you might, never mind. Let's just start all over again. That's not true. Okay. So I have these basted in place. I've cut my middle mark. Now we're going to go ahead and measure up 2 inches from the bottom. So I like to use rulers to go ahead and do that. From the center mark, you're going to do the same thing, 1.5 inches from each side. So I'm going to move this slightly so I actually have this aligned with my center. So 1.5, and I mark my little line here. And then same thing, 1.5, mark my line. Okay. And we're going to use these to put the handle. Now we're going to take our webbing, and we're going to line up one of the 3-inch marks with that 1.5-inch mark that's on the side. And we're going to make sure that the webbing is well placed on here. So how I like to sit this, you could, and the center of this should not be aligned to the center of that, because once we put this and then we do this side, that's how we get our actual strap holder. To keep these in place, I like to go ahead and use painter's tape, and I paint it on the edge, or I tape it on the edge, and then a couple places just to make sure that my webbing doesn't move when I go to sew the box. And then when I go to sew the box, you can either make an X, although I'm not going to do that. Again, I'm going to be using a nice rivet to go into the middle just to give it that extra support. So let's go ahead and sew this box. So you'll see I have the little box in place, nice and snug. I actually went over it twice just because I'm always paranoid around my stitching. I will put the rivet, but I'm going to do that afterwards, so I only have to get the tools out once. So I'm going to take this tape off and this tape off so that I can move this over. And then this is still 1.5. If your marks go off, although I still see my mark, you could always take a look and look. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then it helps also to make sure that you're still at the 1.5. So it's actually a little off. So I'm at 1.5. And I'm going to go ahead and put my tape down. All right, and then I'm going to sew a box here as well, and then we'll come back and install the rivets. All right, so we've done both squares, and then what I've also done, you'll see I left the tape on, because if you didn't do this yet, make sure to do it now and don't take off your tape. Baste your edges just to keep them in place so they're not flopping around, and that way you know that you have it straight. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and put the rivets in place. So I've got this handy duty fun tool that's going to pop my hole. Let's make sure I have that. So you have your gusset in place. I put the rivets. Now we're going to go ahead and add the zipper. So we're going to put the zipper on this side, opposite side of your strap covers. So we're going to go ahead and find the middle point. And put a little snip. And then same thing as the other, let's add little snippets around the zipper just to make sure that we can get it around the curves. And you really only need it on the side that will be away from here. Mainly because this is you're going to install it when it's a curve, but this side you're installing straight. But it's good to do it now so you don't have to have that worry later on. Just little tiny snips. All right, and then I only installed one zipper on this side. I actually like having 2 zippers for this, so check your zipper tape and see if you did 1 or if you'd like to put 2. I think it makes it easier to get into things when you have the 2, because then you can open it from either side and just kind of have fun with it. But you can also very well leave it with just the 1. All right. And I do not use any fun or interesting doohickeys. I just feed it through, make sure it looks level. I put it down on my mat. I hold it with 2 fingers. Of course, it doesn't want to cooperate now that I'm trying to tape myself doing it. And then hold it down and zip. And then have a meet. That way you'll get a nice opening. Okay, so not the side that you put all the cuts in. We're gonna put the other side so that it is lying right side down on the zipper or on the gusset. And we're gonna get that center line mark and start pinning away. All right, so now we're gonna baste this in place. And then we come back, we're going to put this down and connect it as well. And then when we turn it out, we will do the 1/4 inch seam here so that we have the finished edges. All right, so we've basted our zipper in place. Now we're gonna go ahead and add the lining. Make sure that you're putting right side down, get your center mark, and go ahead and start pinning it down. Okay, so we've sewn it together. Now we're gonna go ahead and turn it around. If there's little pieces of thread coming out, it's just because of this woven. It's a little, just go ahead and cut those out. All right, I like to just finger press because I think it works just fine. But if you want, you could also take it and press it. All right, so we're going to top stitch here, and then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna fold this in, and we're gonna fold the bottom in, and we're gonna top stitch across the strap. This will make sure that we don't have any raw edges when we go to actually have the bag assembled. So I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch and I'll be right back. All right, we've gone ahead and top stitched by the zipper. So we're gonna go ahead and now turn this in order to top stitch here. So you just want to sew right over the strap cover. and you want to get it in 1/4 of an inch, and so that means, so we're going to fold that in and under itself. And then I like to pin the top and then come back around and do the bottom just to make sure that I get them into the right spot. So same thing, about 1/4 of an inch so that you get the seam allowance. All right, and we're going to flip it upside down. Oop, I caught this here. I'm going to flip it upside down. We're going to do the same thing with the lining. We're going to fold it down so that it meets. The same thing on this side. All right, now we're not going to sew the middle. We're not going to sew the sides. We're just going to do the middle part to make sure that we get that raw edge gone. All right, I'm going to sew that up and I'll be right back. All right, so I've gone ahead and top stitched these. You'll see it's further in than the others. There's a little bit of a curve, but that's okay. We'll get that when we do the other. And the lining is also tucked away. Okay, so now we're going to assemble the full gusset. You're going to need your top gusset that we just assembled. If you're doing a directional gusset bottom, I'll do that again in the other tutorial, but for now we're going to go as if we had the straight line. And so you're going to need the top again, you're going to need your bottom gusset, and you're going to need your liner. Okay, so we are going to sandwich our top gusset in between our bottom gusset. So the outside goes on the outside. And then the inside, right side together. And don't get confused with your overhang of your zipper tape or your webbing. You want to just make sure that you're lining this up with the edge of your actual top gusset and then put it in place. We're going to sew that and then we'll come back around and we'll do the same thing on this side, which I'm going to do now just because I like to sew it all at once. So we're going to line those up and then line the lining up with it. And we're going to clip it in place. All right, now you will see that this is a little bit bigger, and that's on purpose. Your bottom gusset is going to be longer than your top. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew it at the seam allowance, and then we'll be back and we will turn it inside out and get it ready to top stitch. All right, so I've sewn both sides into the seam allowance. We're going to go ahead and turn it inside out. And then we're going to make sure the seams are good. Press it down so that we could do the top stitch. I'm going to go ahead and pin it in place. And then do the same thing on the other side. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and top stitch. Okay, so now we've gone ahead and we have the gusset, we've top stitched. Now I want you to make sure that your seams and everything are good. So I like you having to watch me take off the clips. We'll come back and we will start doing the hydro separator, which is step number 7. Okay, now we're going to work on the hydro separator. You're going to need the piece H done in waterproof canvas. We will need 2 of the C pieces, the waterproof canvas and the Ysell Bright. So first we're going to take the H and we're going to fold it down. So we're going to fold this down by 1/4. And then again by 1/4. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and top stitch this at 1/4 inch. And then when we come back, I'm going to pin it onto here and then we're going to baste around. Okay, so it's top stitched. Now I'm going to put it around. And this will help when we start to assemble it all so that it's not a bunch of loose pieces. So we're going to go ahead and baste it all together, especially these end ones. Make sure your bottoms are good. Now, it really helps if you have your hydro bag, your water bag, with you, because once you baste it, you're going to want to check and make sure it actually fits inside. If it does not fit inside, I don't have this in the actual pieces, but what you'll want to do is actually make this slightly bigger. You know, add 1 inch down the middle. So when you go to actually cut it, fold it in half, do this side, add 1 inch, and then do the other side. And what that'll do is that'll make this a little bigger, and when you go to sew it around, just sew it up like this, and that will give you extra space. All right, so I'm gonna baste it around and then we'll come back and talk about the next steps. All right, so it's basted in place. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to, so it stays together. And then this is my water bag. I didn't fill it up all the way because I know it fits in here, but just to show you, you should fill it all the way, whatever you're going to do, and then go ahead and put your water bag in. It should fit in here. Mine has space, and the reasoning I know it fits and it has a little bit of wiggle room is, one, we're still going to sew it in. We're going to take it in by 1/4 inch. We're going to take that away when we actually sew it to the outside of the bag and the gusset. So there should be plenty of space in here, since again we're going to take away some of that space. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start making the backpack.